Thank you for choosing the 12 by 14 Meridian Gazebo from Yardistry. We're confident you'll find the assembly process straightforward as you work through each step in the assembly manual. To help you even more, we created these helpful hint videos offering tips and tricks we've learned along the way for handling some of the more challenging and critical steps. Before you begin the assembly process, sort your inventory. Lay each of the wood parts and hardware components on the ground, then take a few minutes to cross-reference each one with the list in the assembly manual. Remember, we're always here to help. Contact us if you find a part that is damaged or missing. Take a moment to record the carton ID stamp for each box that you receive. Record them on page 12 of your assembly manual. Insert T-nuts into the two holes at the bottom of a post. Now place a post mount on one side so that it's tight to the bottom and inside faces of the post. Attach loosely with a hex bolt. Then repeat to install a second post mount at the bottom of the post. Next, place a plinth on one side of the post so that it's flush to the bottom. Attach it with 4 wood screws. Repeat to install plinths on the other 3 sides of the post. Now use 2 pan screws to secure each post mount to the inside of each post. It's okay to insert these at an angle. Secure each post mount to the bottom of each post using 2 wood screws. Then tighten the bolts. In step 3, position a beam short left on a solid, flat, and raised surface. You'll know it's the beam short left because when the notched end is facing down, the angled end faces up. After inserting 2 T-nuts into the notched end, flip the beam short left over and connect the notched ends of the beam short left and beam short right. Attach them with 2 hex bolts. Get a helper to check the alignment of the boards at eye level. When the boards are straight, tighten the hex bolts. Now insert T-nuts into both ends of a beam short center. Flip it over and attach a beam short end on one end using 2 hex bolts. Get a helper to check the alignment of the boards at eye level, then tighten the bolts. Repeat to attach a second beam short end to the beam short center. Next, place a short beam end assembly onto a short beam left-right assembly. If the bolt heads are in the way, you'll want to go back to the beginning of this step to properly identify a beam short left. Make sure the bolt holes match up and the mitered ends align. Then push long bolts through these 4 holes temporarily. Secure the boards with wood screws at each end, then in the middle. Once again, a long bolt might come in handy for positioning the boards. If the second mitered end isn't flush, loosen the bolts in the beam short end, then adjust the boards using a long bolt if necessary. Get a helper to hold the boards in place and secure it with wood screws. Then retighten the bolts in the beam short end. Now repeat each of those steps to make one more short beam assembly. In step 4, position a beam long left on a flat raised surface. You'll know it's the beam long left because when the notched end is facing down, the angled end faces up. After inserting 2 T-nuts into the holes on the notched end, flip the beam long left over and connect the notched end of the beam long left with the notched end of a beam long right using 2 hex bolts. Get a helper to check the alignment of the boards at eye level. When the boards are straight, tighten the hex bolts. Now repeat to assemble a second long beam left-right assembly. Insert a T-nut into one of the holes on the notched end of a beam long end. Repeat with a second beam long end, only this time position the T-nut in the opposite hole on the notched end. You can check to make sure you got the positioning of the T-nuts right by lining up the beam long ends in this manner. Turn one beam long end over and connect it with a hex bolt to the top hole on one end of a beam long center. You'll know it's the top hole because there's an extra hole along the bottom edge. Repeat to attach a second beam long end to the other end of the beam long center using a hex bolt through the top hole. Now get a helper to check the alignment of the boards at eye level before tightening the bolts on one end and then the other. Repeat to assemble a second long beam end assembly. Insert T-nuts into the 4 holes on the outside of a long beam end assembly. Make sure the T-nuts go into the holes shown here on the side of the assembly with the bolt heads showing. Now flip the long beam end assembly over so that the T-nuts are underneath. Lay an insert on top of the long beam end assembly. Make sure the bolt holes line up. With a helper, place the long beam left-right assembly on top of the insert. Push long bolts into these 4 holes temporarily to hold the boards in position. Now secure the long beam left-right assembly loosely with 4 hex bolts connecting to the T-nuts you just installed. Get a helper to hold the boards in place at one end of the assembly. When the mitered edges are flush, attach the beam long end and beam long left with 4 wood screws. Then repeat on the other end of the assembly. If the boards aren't straight or fitting together properly, remove any screws and loosen the bolts. Get a helper to adjust the boards using a long bolt if necessary. When the boards are straight, retighten the bolts. Then insert the remaining screws. Flip the assembly over again and tighten all of the middle bolts. Repeat to assemble a second long beam assembly. You'll need 4 people for frame assembly. Make sure you carry out this step in the final location of the structure. Get 2 people to hold the post assemblies while 2 others lift a beam assembly into place. Take a moment to make sure the gusset holes are positioned along the bottom of the beam assembly. When it's a long beam assembly you're installing, make sure to insert the hex bolt in the top hole, then through the hole on the post assembly. Leave the bottom hole empty for now. It will be used later to secure the structure. Make sure the top edge of the beam is flush to the top of the posts before hand tightening the hex bolt. When you're installing each short beam assembly, insert the hex bolt into the bottom hole, then through the hole on the post assembly. Once again, leave the other hole empty for use in a later step. When the frame is fully assembled, check to make sure all of the measurements match those listed on page 18 of your assembly manual. It should measure 15 feet 5 1/4 inches diagonally between posts. At the front and back, which are the longest sides of the assembly, it should measure 12 feet 10 3/8 inches from the outer edge of each post. The shorter sides of the assembly should measure 10 feet 10 3/8 inches from the outer edge of each post. The post assemblies must be square to the beam assemblies. Spend some time checking each one and adjust the positioning at the bottom to get it right. Make sure the 4 post assemblies are level. Then check to ensure each beam assembly is level too. When you've confirmed that all of the measurements are correct, use lag screws to secure each post in place. In step 6, lay a gusset down on a flat surface with a notched end facing down and insert T-nuts into the 2 holes. Repeat to insert T-nuts in the same manner on all 8 gussets. Now get a helper to hold a gusset in place against one post on the frame assembly. Make sure the end with the T-nuts is at the top and both notched ends of the gusset fit tightly against the post and beam. Attach the gusset to the beam with 2 hex bolts. Use 3 hex lags to attach the other end of the gusset to the post. Repeat all of those steps to attach 7 more gussets to the frame assembly. Use a solid raised surface for this step. It's important that all the corners are flush, so get some assistance holding the ends of the rafter corner left, rafter corner right, and rafter in place. When they're aligned, attach with wood screws. It's also crucial to get the positioning of the fascia beam assembly right. If the ends don't align properly, try rotating the fascia beam assembly. Once you get the ends to fit properly against the rafter corner left and rafter corner right, attach with wood screws. When you're attaching the end of the rafter to the fascia beam assembly, Make sure it's centered over the 2 pilot holes on the fascia beam assembly. If the end of the strap or strap short isn't flush with the edge of the rafter corner left or right, have someone hold the boards in position, then fasten with wood screws. When you're attaching the rafter short right or left, fasten it at the bottom first, where it connects to the fascia beam assembly. Then fasten it at the top to the rafter corner right or left. Flip one of the small roof rafter assemblies over and install roof-to-beam brackets on it. The bracket should be centered and flush to the bottom of the rafter short left, and rafter short right. It's essential to work on a flat and solid raised surface for step 10. Use a flat edge to check the alignment of the fascia beam assembly. If there's a gap like this, flip the beam over. In the correct position, the top of the fascia beam is level with the top of the rafter. Check to make sure there's a distance of 22 3/4 inches between the rafters before attaching the fascia beam. Make sure each corner is flush when you install the rafter corner left and right. Get someone to hold the boards in place, then attach with wood screws. Next, position the strap short large roof in the notches of the rafter corner right, rafter corner left, and the 2 rafters. Make sure the ends don't overhang, then attach with 8 wood screws. Now move the strap left large roof and strap right large roof into place so that they fit into the notches on the rafter corner left and right and the 2 rafters. Don't attach them yet. First, position the rafter short right so that it fits into the grooves under the strap right large roof. When it's snug, attach one end of the rafter short right to the large fascia beam assembly. Then attach the other end to the rafter corner right. Repeat to position a rafter short left into the grooves under the strap left large roof. Attach it in the same manner, first to the large fascia beam assembly and then to the rafter corner left. Next, fasten the strap left large roof and strap right large roof. Get some help to ensure the ends don't overhang the edges of the rafter corner left and rafter corner right. Then attach with wood screws. To complete the step, use more wood screws to attach the strap left large roof and strap right large roof to the rafter short left, rafter short right, and the 2 rafters. Turn the large roof rafter assembly over. Position a strap brace over the ends of the strap left large roof and strap right large roof between the rafters. Make sure the edges are flush, then attach with 8 wood screws. Install roof-to-beam brackets on both of the large roof rafter assemblies. They should be centered and flush to the bottom of both rafters, the rafter short right and the rafter short left. Gloves are essential for this part of the assembly because roofing material can have sharp edges. To prevent scuffing, remove the clear and blue protective film from both sides of each aluminum part just before you use it. If you're using a power tool, be careful not to over-tighten the roofing screws because that can damage the roofing panels. We recommend hand tightening the screws until they're snug. Step 12 should be done on a flat, solid, raised surface. Position the long panel right onto the small roof rafter assembly so that it's flush to the side of the rafter corner right. The holes on the rib should be centered on the rafter, and the panel should overhang slightly over the bottom edge of the fascia beam assembly. Now move the long panel left into place. One rib should overlap a rib on the long panel right. Make sure the other side is flush to the rafter corner left. Once again, the bottom edge will overhang slightly. When the panels are aligned, attach them with 4 roofing screws in the locations shown here and on page 33 of your manual. Take care not to over-tighten the roofing screws. Place the right short panel onto the roof rafter assembly so that a rib overlaps the long panel right. It should be flush to the edge of the rafter corner right and overhang slightly at the bottom. Repeat to install the left short panel. It's okay if the panel edges aren't quite flush with the rafter corner left or right, but make sure they don't overhang. If they do, loosen the roofing screws at the top of the assembly, then remove the other three. Adjust the roof panel so they're aligned correctly, then replace the roofing screws and tighten. In step 13, get some assistance to position a roof edge left and roof edge right along the bottom of each small roof panel assembly. Make sure the ends meet tight in the center, and the other end sits flush with the outer edges of the fascia beam assembly, attached with roofing screws. Peel away a small portion of the backing on a strip of weather seal, then begin attaching it to the rounded bottom of a ridge clip. When you're done applying the full length of weather seal, attach the ridge clip to one side of the small roof panel assembly so that it aligns with the angle of the rafter corner right or left. As long as one end is flush to the top of the roof panel, the other should not overhang. Take care not to push down on the ridge clip. Attach it with 5 wood screws, then repeat to install a second ridge clip. It's important to do step 14 on a raised surface that is flat and solid. Place a middle panel onto a large roof rafter assembly. Make sure the holes at the side of the panel are over the rafter. In the correct position, there will be a slight overhang on the top and a large overhang at the bottom of the panel. Now place a long panel right on the assembly, then a long panel left. They should be flush to the edges of the rafter corner left and right, and overhang the fascia beam assembly along the bottom. When the panels are aligned, attach them with 4 roofing screws in the locations shown here and on page 35 of your instruction manual. Repeat to install a short panel left and right on the assembly. It's all right if the panels aren't perfectly flush with the edges of the rafter corner left or right. Just make sure they don't overhang. If they do, loosen the roofing screws at the top assembly. Remove the other 3 screws, then adjust all of the roof panels. When they're aligned correctly, replace the roofing screws and tighten. On one of the large roof panel assemblies, place a spacer top so that it's centered on the top and flush to the outside edges. Attach the spacer top with 3 wood screws. When you're attaching the roof edge left and roof edge right at the bottom of a large roof panel assembly, make sure the curved finished edge is the one over top of the roof panels. Attach them with 20 roofing screws. Peel away a small portion of the backing on a strip of weather seal, then begin attaching it to the rounded bottom of a ridge clip. When you're done applying the full length of weather seal, attach the ridge clip to one side of the large roof panel assembly so that it's on the same angle as the rafter corner right or left. The end of the ridge clip should be flush to the top of the roof panel. It must not overhang at either end. Attach with 5 wood screws, then repeat to install a second ridge clip. Do not attempt step 16 in windy conditions. You'll need 4 people and 3 ladders for this step. Position 2 of the ladders near the posts supporting one long beam assembly and the other in the middle. Assign one person to remain in the middle throughout the step to support the roof panels. On each short beam assembly, measure 4 feet 11 inches from the inside of a post and place a mark on the beam. Now get 3 people to lift a large roof panel assembly over a long beam assembly. Be careful not to scratch the roof panels or scuff the beam with the roof-to-beam brackets. As the person in the middle holds the top of the assembly in place, make adjustments so that the corners are centered over the roof-to-post brackets. Next, lift a small roof panel assembly, the one with the roof-to-beam brackets on it, over the short beam assembly so that it fits snugly against the panel already in place. The center roof-to-beam bracket should line up with the mark you made on the short beam assembly. When the edges of the 2 roof panel assemblies align, connect them with 3 hex bolts. If you're having trouble getting the corners or bolt holes to line up, have the person in the center push up on one or more of the panels to find the right fit. Install the remaining large roof panel assembly. Adjust the 3 panels as needed. In the correct position, the top edges of the 3 panels form a square. To make it easier to install the peak loop, place a piece of tape over the nut. That way it doesn't fall out during installation. Lift the last small roof panel, the one with no roof to beam brackets, into place over the short beam assembly. Get someone to push up on the peak loop so that the top of the panel slides under the edge of the peak cap. It may take some effort to get the 4th panel in place. Have the person in the center push up on one or more of the roof panel assemblies to achieve the right alignment. If the last small roof panel still doesn't fit, try the following. Check to make sure it does not have roof-to-beam brackets installed. If they're installed, remove them. Try loosening all 6 other hex bolts installed during the roof panel assembly. That may allow for more room to adjust the panels. Refer back to steps 8, 10, 12, and 14 in your manual. You'll want to make sure all of the parts of the roof rafter assemblies are flush and that the roof panels don't overhang the roof rafter corners right and left. Once the panel assemblies are aligned and the corners are flush and sit on the roof-to-beam brackets, tighten all of the bolts. Now, with some assistance to lift the roof panel, insert 3 roof-to-beam brackets under the last small roof panel installed. The roof-to-beam brackets should be centered and flush to the bottom of each rafter. Attach them with pan screws. It's important to get the roof placement just right. If necessary, push up on the peak to ensure a tight fit. Each corner should be aligned over the center of the roof-to-post brackets. Make sure all of the roof-to-beam brackets are flush and tight to the beam assembly. When the roof assembly is in place, attach it with 2 wood screws at the end of each fascia beam. For better access, loosen the roofing screw on the roof edge before inserting the screws into the fascia beam assembly. Remember to remove the plastic film from both sides of a ridge cap just before you're ready to install it. If the ridge cap doesn't slide on smoothly, add a few drops of liquid soap on the inside of the cap before reinstalling. It may also help to have someone push up on the middle of the roof assembly. If the ridge cap still won't go on or an obstacle is blocking it, try bending the ridge clip up on one side. Hook one side of the ridge cap over the bent side, then push down on the other side until it catches. Slide the ridge cap on, then have someone push up on the peak cap long so that the ridge cap can slide underneath it. Then push down to bend the ridge clip back into place. Place a tie wrap bracket tight to one end of a tie so that the ends fit together tightly. Attach the tie wrap bracket with 1 pan screw through the hole closer to the middle of the tie. Now get a helper to hold the tie in place against the rafter so that it's level. Attach the tie to both sides of each rafter with the appropriate hardware. Pre-drill through the other hole on the bottom edge of the tie wrap bracket, then attach it with a pan screw.